Hey everyone, it's Konrad Bobilak, author of Australian Property Finance Made Simple, Director of Investors Prime Real Estate, and I've made this really cool video for you today talking about investor psychology and negative people in your life. And this is not a topic that I've really discussed on my YouTube channel. You know, if you've seen my other videos, they focus on a lot about the technical aspect of investing. You know, and when it comes to becoming successful in property investing, 80% of success is psychology, which is your mindset, and 20% is your specialized knowledge. Now, my YouTube channel is predominantly focused on that 20%, the stuff you've got to implement, where you have to buy properties, you know, and how to structure your property portfolio correctly. And I want to talk about negative people because, you know, my wife and I have been investing now for well over 20 years, and we've come across a lot of negative people, not only friends and colleagues from work, but also family, very negative people who are skeptical about investing. And, you know, most of them know there's no malice intended. You know, when they talk to you about, are you sure you should be buying another investment property, or are you sure you know what you're doing? What if the market crashes? Really, they're actually concerned about you, but they're also projecting their fears onto you because they don't want you to lose money and they don't want you to go bankrupt, basically. You know, so how do you deal with that? How do you get the negative people out of your life and how do you attract more positive people? Because ultimately, that's what's going to determine your success, you know, in terms of investing. Psychology and mindset is everything. You know, if you've seen my other YouTube videos, I talk about the 4 components of becoming successful in property investing. And the biggest one, number 1, is psychology and mindset. You see, it doesn't matter how much you know about investing, it doesn't matter what experts you have in your life. If you have a fear on the subconscious level of accumulating properties because of your taking on debt, if you have a subconscious negative association with investing, you've got no chance of investing. That's the reality. And that's why I've made these videos, to give you some feedback and kind of stuff that I've picked up over the last 20 years that I want to share with you because I think it's going to add massive value to you as a property investor. Now, personal disclaimer, obviously my results are not typical. I'm not saying that if you listen to me, you're going to become a multi-millionaire property investor. Just like if you buy a gym membership, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get gains. You have to go to the gym and actually lift weight, okay? So just like with anything, there is no guarantees in life. Why should you listen to me? A couple of things for those who've never seen me before or have never seen any of my past YouTube videos. I've got a lot of credentials behind my name. You know, I'm a real estate agent, mortgage broker. I've got a diploma in financial planning. The most important thing is I've built a multi-million-dollar property portfolio from scratch here in Melbourne. And not only that, that property portfolio has allowed my wife and I to have an extraordinary lifestyle that most people will never have. You know, and what I want to do is teach you these distinctions that we've picked up over the years so you too can start building your wealth through real estate. I'm also the author of Australian Property Finance Made Simple, which you can get a copy on bookonfinance.com.au or Amazon or any bookshop in Australia, which I'm very proud of. It took me 3 years to write this book. And I guess it's the number 1 thing you should get as an investor is to get the finance right. But beyond that, psychology is going to get you to implement stuff. The reality is that there's very few property investors in Australia currently. If you look at the stats, 72% of all investors only own 1 property. Less than 1% of investors in Australia own more than 6 properties. Now, when I saw these figures for the first time 15 years ago, I was convinced it had to do with income. And I thought, well, you know, these guys with 6 properties or more, they're probably doctors and lawyers. Wrong. Most of these people have average incomes. The distinction is these people have a different mindset and different psychology compared to these people. And that's by choice most of the time. And I want to share some of the key distinctions that I've picked up over the years about psychology and mindset. Why is it so very few people succeed in investing in real estate? Well, most people don't have any strategy or methodology or anything. They just have a buy and hold strategy. Buy and hold and pray. They buy something around the corner from where they live, within 3 to 5 kilometres, you know, so they can keep an eye out on it in case it runs off one day as they're driving from work. Oh shit, the property's gone. And there's no other thought process beyond that. I mean, anyone can do that. Anyone can go to a bank, get equity out of your property and buy something around the corner. It doesn't take any kind of thought process to do that. What I'm interested in doing is sharing with you information about psychology and mindset and peer groups. And that, you know, Melbourne's probably one of the best markets you can invest in. You know, in the 390 suburbs that make up Melbourne, over the last 10 years, half of them have doubled in terms of median price for detached houses, but only 48 suburbs have doubled in terms of apartment median price appreciation. So apartments have gone from 250 to 500 in those suburbs, for example, and in these instances, out of the 198 houses, they've doubled in median price. But that also means that the other half haven't doubled. And this is where a lot of negative people come from. People that have references of their homes having no appreciation over the last 10 years. Perfect example is Tregonina, Tarneit, Point Cook in Melbourne. I mean, it virtually hasn't gone up in the last 10 years. It's just barely kept up with inflation. Yet other suburbs like Yarraville, Williamstown, have quadrupled in the last 5 years. Port Melbourne, Albert Park, some properties have multiplied by a factor of 5 in the last 5 years. Sorry, in the last 10 years, which is incredible, you know. So there's obviously different people out there in society. There's people with references that you can't go wrong with property, and there's people that have references that are very negative because they're living in areas that haven't appreciated in value. And don't forget, the real estate market is not an investment market, okay? It's not an investment market. It's a necessities market. Just because it's a house in Melbourne, there's no guarantees it's going to double in value in the next 10 years. Now, as investors, we identify the trends and the signals, and we hopefully copy them to buy those properties that have doubled, but there's no guarantee anything is going to double. It doesn't have to double, you know? And this is what I keep telling investors, houses don't have to keep going up in value. They're not made to go up in value, they're made to house people. They happen to go up in value for different reasons, but they don't need to go up in value. That's not what they're designed to do. So why is it that so few people really succeeding in investing? One of the biggest reasons in my experience is not only lack of financial literacy, but even if they have some basic financial literacy, they come across negative people and their references and their peer groups will take them down to the same level that they're at. And that's the reality. Your network creates your net worth, you know? If you have an idea of investing and you start talking to your friends and peer groups and say, you know what, I just got pre-approved to buy an investment property in Melbourne for $700,000, I'm thinking of getting a townhouse. What do you think most of them will say? Oh, don't do it now. The market's about to crash. We're at the peak of the market. Why don't you wait a few years when the market corrects and get into all this bullshit, right? It's just all negativity. No, very few people will actually tell you, you know what, that's a great idea. Why don't you buy a bunch of townhouses and replace your income in 10 years' time? I mean, how many people actually say that to you in your peer group? You know, the reality is, what's crazy about the notion of asking people in your peer group is, unless they're successful property investors, why would you ask them anyway? You know, I would never ask advice of anyone unless they have the exact results that I want. I'll give you a simple analogy, okay? I've been doing powerlifting now for 20 years. And powerlifting, by the way, is lifting heavy weights for no particular reason in the gym. Then I bench press 146 kilos right now for 1 rep max. If someone's benching 100 kilos, why would I take advice from them on how I can bench 160 kilos? If they knew how to bench 160 kilos, they'll be benching 160 kilos, would you agree? Obviously, they can't bench 160 kilos because they can only bench 100 kilos. Now, by the way, your body weight has nothing to do with it because the #1 record holder in Australia for bench is only 86 kilos and he benches over 200 kilos, right? So the reality is, why would I take advice from anyone that has results lower than what I have in lifting weights, right? Same thing with property. If you want to build a large property portfolio, why would you take advice from someone that hasn't got any properties behind them? It doesn't make any sense, right? It's like asking someone about training that doesn't go to the gym, you know? It's as dumb as that. It's saying, Joe, do you go to a gym? No, I've never been to a gym. Mate, do you reckon I should do squats, front squats or rear squats? What do you reckon is better for growing the legs? How the hell does Joe know? Joe doesn't know anything. Joe hasn't been to the gym, right? It's the same thing. Asking your friends or family about investing if they've never invested or they've got one property. And this is the reality. So you've got to find a better network if you want a better or higher net worth. You've got to seek out successful people who are willing to share the information with you. And this is why I see a lot of people's dreams being destroyed because they just go to people that are unqualified to give them advice. The other part of that is also people go to financial planners or mortgage brokers or accountants that are negative about property, but they seemingly have degrees behind them, so they have some kind of an authority on the topic. Now, most financial planners, from my experience, are completely anti-property. One, they've got no property behind them apart from their house. Number two, they can't sell real estate, okay? Because as a financial planner, you're not licensed to sell real estate. And real estate investing in Australia or real estate as a home doesn't currently fall under the Financial Services Act as an investment. Therefore, financial planners can't give advice on property as well. And this is the other thing is, Those people that don't go to the friends and family, they go to financial planners, accountants, and ask about property, and they'll say, oh yeah, you've got to be careful, you better stick your money into shares or managed funds. You cannot hang out with negative people and expect to live a positive life. Very basic, but very true. If you want to have a positive life, hang out with positive people, seek them out. Have you ever found that negative people kind of group together and it almost becomes like a competition about whose life is more miserable? You know, try that once. If you see a negative person, you can identify them very quickly. They're always complaining, you know, about life, and they're kind of professional life victims. Oh, this stuff happened to me. You know, I've got this, I've got that. My back is gone, my knees are gone, this is gone. You know, and then talk about yourself. So, you know, I had knee surgery as well. I had lower back surgery. It becomes a competition almost whose life is more miserable. You know, it's unbelievable. So 80% of success is psychology, 20% is specialized knowledge. And this is the stuff that I've been focusing on in my books, in my YouTube videos. I don't talk about psychology that much, but I wanted to do this video because I think it's so important, especially where we are in the market right now. Your current results are a reflection of your current level of awareness. It's that simple. So if you look at yourself objectively, and by the way, I never assess people based on how much money they've made, okay? There's more important things in life than money. But I'm saying if you just look at money in your bank account, if you look at your net worth, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Some of the most intelligent people that I've met are at Monash University making $80,000 a year, okay? Completely broke, highly intelligent, IQs off the charts. Nothing to do with how much money you make, by the way. The simple fact is that your current results as an investor are a direct reflection of your level of awareness in the particular market. That's all it is. And your current knowledge base is divided into different segments. There are things that you know that you know. There are things that you know that you don't know. And there are things that you don't know that you don't know. It doesn't matter how smart you are. There's a lot of stuff out there you're not even aware that is out there that are people doing, but it's not you. So you can be very intelligent, but this is just about having the knowledge or not having the knowledge. It's basically like seeing a movie or not seeing a movie. It doesn't matter how smart you are. You haven't seen the movie, you haven't seen the movie. Now, the most important thing as an investor is to get rid of the stuff that you don't know, that others have done, implemented successfully, but you haven't been there at the time that it was being taught. You weren't there to get the information from the person that was doing it. You weren't there to read the book. That's the most expensive thing in your life. You know, people say, you know, education's expensive. Reading books is expensive. Going to seminars is expensive. I spent over $180,000 on my personal development in the last 20 years. And they said, that's so expensive. You think that's expensive? Try ignorance. Try going to 90 with one house, retiring on a pension of $130,000 with no options to buy real estate. That's freaking expensive. You know, spending money on your personal development is the best investment you can ever make. You know, people say that's expensive. Try ignorance. Try not knowing all this stuff. You know, that's expensive. Now, what's going to happen is, why am I telling you about this stuff? The amount of times that my wife and I have spent $3,000 to $5,000 on seminars in the last 20 years, flying to Sydney, flying to Brisbane, flying to WA, going to boot camps, and then telling our friends, saying, where are you going this weekend? Oh, we're going to a seminar. Oh, really? How much is that costing you? $3,000. Why would you spend $3,000 on a seminar? You can get all the information online. You can just read a couple of books for $30. All those comments from all those people over the years, and let me tell you, a lot of negative people, guess what? Today, after we've built our property portfolio, guess where they are? One house, no assets, still saying, why would you spend $5,000 on a seminar? You can just read all the information. Well, the thing is, it doesn't exist anywhere else in any other format. You either spend the money on that education or you don't get any results. You know, the best use of my time I've ever had was spending 3 days with people like Stephen McKnight or Dimfna Bolholt or those property experts, and having the advantage of compressing time in those 3 days and learning information that took them a decade to accumulate. You know, to spend $2 or $3,000 is nothing. You know, even when I was making $40,000 a year working for Australian Unity Funds Management, I was still spending $4,000 for personal development. The thing is, you're going to spend all the money that you make anyway. You're going to burn through everything. People buying freaking Commodores for $45,000, driving out of the dealership and do worth $30,000. That's freaking insanity, right? Buy a cheaper second-hand car and just spend the rest on the personal development. People buying Camrys for 25 grand. The moment you drive out of a dealership with a Camry, it's worth $18,000 to $20,000. You've lost 5 grand in one day, and people don't even do it with a blinking an eye. But they won't spend, $2 grand on personal development. The more you spend on your personal development, and this is what happens with your level of awareness. It just keeps increasing. And this is a reflection of how much you have in your life. It just goes from that to that to that. So think about yourself. How much money have you spent on your personal development in the last 10 years? And my advice is you should be spending 10% of your income per year on your personal development until you achieve exactly what you want to achieve. Because you're going to spend that money anyway. Think about the last 10 years. How much money have you in your job? Okay, just take your annual income multiplied by 10. How much money have you saved? 0, right? 99% of people don't save anything. Whatever you make in your job, your life will just catch up, right? You just drive a better car, take a better holiday, blow more money on going out on clothing, right? That's the reality. So spending money on your personal development always yields the highest dividends. That's just a fact, but very few people do it. And very few people do it because so many people around them are negative, saying, why would you do that? Get a book, get an ebook. Money is a result, wealth is a result, health is a result, illness is a result, your weight is a result. We live in a world of cause and effect. Whatever you focus on expands. And not only does it expand, your peer group will change because your interests change and your vibration changes as a person and you start attracting different people in your life. So the question is, how do I expand my level of awareness? Well, it's very simple. Effective education delivered by people that are qualified to deliver it. I'm not talking about academics here. Please don't get me wrong. I love the fact that I did a Monash, business degree. I talk about, a lot, talk about MBA, more about advice. But reality is I never learned how to make money in my degree, but I did learn a lot about stats and law and all that kind of crap, right? Effective education to me today is by people that have done it and implemented it and have measurable results. I don't care if the person has no degree behind them. If they've got 10 properties and I've got 1 and I want to get to 10, that's the person I'll listen to. Combined with professional mentoring, if you can get it, or coaching, which is, if you look at the most successful people in the world, whether it's movie stars, sports celebrities, any kind of sports person, they have multiple trainers and coaches. You don't want to be reinventing the wheel from scratch. You want to be leveraging off people who have done it and accomplished it beforehand. And then you've got to allow a reasonable period of time. It's not going to happen in 3 days, It's going to take a year or 6 months or 12 months or 24 months, depending on what you do and how much time you commit. And my advice is, during this period of time, don't share this information with anyone unless they're doing it with you. Because the moment you start telling your family you're doing, they'll say, hey, going, yeah, good, I'm spending 10 grand a year on a business coach. Why are you doing that? That's crazy. You don't need a business coach. Go to our family accountant that's kept us broke for the last 30 years. Joe will tell you how to get your business to the next level. So how to identify negative people in your life? And this is the thing. You've got to, for me personally, if I knew what I know now, I would identify and eliminate. Now, that's a harsh thing to say, right? You're going to say, oh, Konrad's a bastard, you're called bastard Konrad, right? The reality is, these people have been eliminated from my life anyway by default, because eventually my life and my psychology was not compatible with their belief systems and their psychology, and you just move away from each other. And that's actually what happens over time. If I had to do it again, I would just do it very, almost clinically and just cut them off. People too weak to follow their own dreams will always find a way to discourage yours. And this is the key thing and why people want to hold you back. Part of the reason that people want to hold you back, these negative people, are because they're scared that if you succeed beyond their capabilities, you're going to move away from them. And by moving away from them, they're going to lose you. And people hate change, but the worst thing they hate beyond change is forced change, because they're going to have to be forced to adopt to a life without you. And that's the reality. If your friends see you start buying properties or doing subdivisions or renovations or developments, and they're scared to do it themselves, they'll try to sabotage you on some level to hold you back, because they don't want to adapt to a life without you. Because they're scared if you start doing developments, you're going to become more successful and you won't need them anymore. which is kind of sad if you look at the way people think, but that's the reality. We've experienced that all the time. It's just people just move away. Oh, you're buying another property, you sure? Okay. And after a while, that kind of stuff becomes redundant, because if you've succeeded over time and they see you got results, and you see the houses you have and the cars you drive and the money that you have is completely different and very much, uncomparable to what they have, eventually they move away. Oh, and they'll say they've changed. So how to identify these negative people? Well, let me just share some information with you. And this is unsuccessful people or negative people, and this is successful people that tend to be positive. I've never seen a successful people that's negative, okay? If you're successful in your industry, you tend to be positive. If you're unsuccessful, you tend to be negative. Negative people criticize. They hold a grudge and they blame others for their failures, especially this. So look, identify what they're talking to while they're talking to you, and always go, oh, but it's not my fault because my mum was cooking too well and I ate too much food and that's why I'm fat today, Oh, my father did this, or my uncle did that, or the school that I was going to didn't have a good mathematics department, that's why I never learned maths and I can't do numbers now, I can't invest. Positive people compliment, they forgive others, they accept responsibility for their failures. Negative people say they keep a journal, but they don't. Positive people keep a journal, and they actually want others to succeed, and they have a keep A to B list. Negative people think they know it all, and they don't want others to succeed, and they don't have a list of anything. These people tend to operate from a transactional perspective, and secretly hope others fail, because it makes them feel better about themselves as well. These people actually set goals and develop life plans. These people say, well, I don't need to write it down. It's in my head. These people actually write it down and implement. They continuously learn, and they operate from a transformational perspective. They tend to come from a perspective of infinite abundance. These people tend to come from a scarcity perspective. These people keep a to-do project list. These people have hoard information and data, and exude anger. They're passive-aggressive most of the time, And I'm sure you can identify with these people in your life. I'm sure you have both positive and negative people in your life right now, or in your workplace, or in your friends. These people have a sense of gratitude. These people have a sense of entitlement. These give others credit for their victories. These take credit for all the victories. They read every day. These people watch TV every day. Do you know I haven't been watching TV for the last 10 years? I've never seen an episode of MasterChef or any of the crap that's on TV. I just have no interest in MasterChef or My Kitchen Rules or all the other shows, and they're come and gone over the decades. And yet the information that I've learned by taking that time after work and spending 2 or 3 hours every night reading and educating myself has made me millions of dollars. And what value could you possibly have about watching 2 or 3 hours every night about Biggest Loser or someone cooking freaking pasta? It's insanity, And these people wonder, why can't we get into the market? Because you're an idiot. You should have spent more time educating yourself and buying properties and identifying the best properties and then getting into the market. Oh, but that's too expensive now. Yeah, we know, because they've done so well. These people talk about ideas. These people talk about people. And this is the biggest difference, and this summarizes really everything about negative people and successful, intelligent people. Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events, world events. Weak minds discuss people. I look at myself now after 20 years, and some of my friends are very successful multi-millionaires. In fact, out of all my friends, I have the least amount of money, which I'm really, really happy with. But I look at my accountant as a multi-millionaire with multiple commercial residential properties, massive accounting practice, with millions of dollars. And I look at him, and it's difficult for him, even if you try to, for him to talk about other people. Even if you mention names and get him almost into a scenario where he has to talk about someone, he'll almost defer straight back to ideas. Those people can't even go down to this level, even if you try to get engaged in the conversation. They're just wired differently. So if you look at the conversations you're having with people, Stick to people that talk about ideas, concepts, investment strategies, what the market's doing, or at very least, people that talk about global events, politics. You know, the worst people you can hang out with, whether she said, he said, I can't believe she did this, he did that, all this other crap, micro level people that just, the whole life is based around what she said, what he said. And the problem with these people is, you also notice they're freaking permanently offended. They go through life offended constantly because someone did something. Someone cut them off. She sent in a rude email. I have to get my money back for my $10 shirt, so I'm going to spend 6 hours writing emails on principle to get my money back. You know, all this crap, all this micro-level crap, and they get immersed in this life of constant battle, you know, with these people, and they're permanently offended. You know, permanently offended. They go through life with a big chip on their shoulder, like they're meant for greatness, but everyone's holding them down. Meanwhile, these people are just smashing it, keep kicking goals. So this is one of the best ways to identify, eliminate people from your life. Think about what they talk to you about. If they're discussing ideas, fantastic, spend more time with them. Events, yep, no problem. If they talk about people constantly, get rid of them, because they can't take it to the next level. And if you do want to do something to the next level, if you go to this level, they'll drag you down to this level immediately. And that's the issue. You may not be able to control someone's negative behavior, but you can control how long you participate in it. That's the reality. You're in control in who you hang out with. Not only that, the more time you spend on property investing or any kind of thing that you're passionate about, your interest will change and your peer group will change around you as well. You're going to start attracting like-minded individuals, because ultimately in society, like-minded individuals are attracted to other like-minded individuals. Look at anything, any hobby, any sport, you know, people tend to group together. And I would say negativity is one of the biggest killer of dreams when it comes to real estate investing, especially from, you know, for those reasons that I mentioned before. Now, there's 4 critical parts of building a large property portfolio, and you've seen me talk about this extensively through my YouTube videos. There's having the right psychology, the right plan and system, obviously experts around you, and property selection methodology. I've put psychology number 1 because of those reasons, because if you don't have the right psychology, and not only do you have to have a positive mindset, surrounding yourself with positive people who are also achieving the same goals, you can feed off them. You're feeding off the momentum of each other, and you're feeding off the energy of each other. And that's what I've identified the most successful investors over the years who have gone from 0 to 10 properties or from 0 to 6 properties in you know, 5 or 6 years or 10 years. When I looked at them and what they've done, they've consciously blocked out negativity from their life and they're focused on people who are positive in their life. And then hence they get the results. You know, and the definition of success is when you have these things synchronized and working together. Keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that. But the really great ones make you feel that you can too become great. When you're seeking to bring big plans to fruition, it's important with whom you regularly associate. Hang out with friends who are like-minded and who are also designing a purpose-filled lives. Similarly, be that kind of a friend to your friends as well. As you become more successful, you're going to be attracting successful people, and then you're going to be also mentoring and fueling other people's passions and ability to implement strategies. When you delete the unnecessary people from your life, good things will start happening to you, and it won't be a coincidence. You know, the thing is, the more successful you become, the negative people won't like you anymore because, oh, they've changed now, or it's easy for them, or you were lucky you bought in Yarraville or Williamstown or Elwood 10 years ago. Now it's too late for us. You know, it's always too late for those people. For the last 30 years, it's been too late. Its reality is never too late. They just don't understand what they're doing because they've never, ever cultivated the level of awareness to take them to the next level. That's the reality. If you're interested in learning more, by the way, I do run events from time to time called the Real Estate Investing Fast Track Weekends. And you can check out the event on this website here, or simply scroll down below and there's a link. Tickets are free. I do about 10 of these per year, and there's really no catch, it's just pure education. However, we're very limited in seats and there's only 40 seats available per event. So now we actually have a waiting list of people to get into these events, so they do book out very quickly. These events are structured purely as educational events. There's a number of speakers that we have. And the dates are below, by the way. So if you scroll down below, there's a link that will take you to the website. It will give you all the dates. They're just in Melbourne. I don't fly around Australia and do these events. I just do it purely for my Melbourne clients. We have Stephen Molnar, who's the MC, and he's also a property strategist. We have Martina Angelique. She's an accountant that specializes in teaching people how to set up properties through trusts and corporate trustees. Cameron Fisher from Changing Places Real Estate, who's a qualified valuer and also the director of Changing Places Real Estate and the director of buymyplace.com.au, which listed on the stock exchange just recently. Myself, I focus on psychology and finance and investment strategies. And Stephen McClutchy from Loans Australia. Stephen's company specialises in structuring investors and helping them get loans. His company currently has broken over the $1 billion mark in loan settlements, which is incredible. So this guy specialises in only looking after property investors. It's a 2-day event. It's an amazing event. It's a lot of detailed information. And really, if you don't know where to start investing, if you don't know what's the first thing to do, come to the event, because the information that you're going to learn has taken some of us over 2 decades to accumulate. So it's the best use of your time is just to sit there and get all the information for free. It's usually down in our head office in Alma Road, St Kilda, or at the Blackburn Hotel in St Kilda Road, depending on what we're doing at the time. So check that out. The event is structured into 2 days. Day 1 is property due diligence and research, and we spend a long time on finance. Day 2, we take you out of the classroom environment, stick you onto a bus, and we drive you around Melbourne, educating you on the suburbs. And this is where we really take the theoretical aspects of education into practical application. You know, you're on the road, getting out of the bus, looking at development with a valuer, with a real estate agent, and really getting educated about which areas to target in Melbourne and which areas also to avoid and why. So for those who are interested, check that out. Also, if you're interested in learning more about finance, check out my book, Australian Property Finance Made Simple, on amazon.com.au or bookonfinance.com.au. Now, because you've stayed to the end of this video, which is really cool, by the way, I'm going to give you a special bonus valued at $497. And this is for people who can't make the trip to Melbourne, which I don't know why you wouldn't, by the way, because it's the best use of your time. I want to give you a free online home study, which is a recording of the Fast Track Weekend from 2 years ago, valued at $497, absolutely free. There's nothing for you to pay. You just log in and you watch it. And literally what it does, it takes you through all the stuff we mentioned before, of the 4 main ingredients of building wealth and how you can structure your large property portfolio that will replace your income eventually, or has the potential to replace your income, I should say. Obviously, there's no guarantees in life. Like with anything, like with the gym membership. The gym membership doesn't guarantee results. You've got to go in, actually train, take supplements, and do your very best. Once you register for this online home study, it's super simple to access. You can literally access it immediately, and it's point and click. There's 10 hours of education, plus you get a manual of all the PowerPoint slides. There's 365 slides in there, so it's a lot of information to take in, and most people watch this a couple of times before they get all the information. And that's absolutely free for you. All you got to do is scroll down below, and there's a link for you to click, and you can access the information immediately. The home study, by the way, is accessible instantly. It's 10 hours of education plus the book that you follow for 10 hours, which is really cool. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy the future videos that I'm making from YouTube. And also, I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel to make sure you never miss out on any videos that I'm making. That's all from me. This is Konrad Bobilak, and I'll see you on the inside.